Let me tell you the wildest story of my life. One that started with petty neighborhood drama and escalated into an epic revenge that brought down the ultimate HOA tyrant. It all began in our quiet suburban community where the HOA president, a woman we all called Karen behind her back, ruled with an iron fist, fining people for the tiniest infractions like slightly overgrown lawns or holiday lights left up a day too long. My wife Emily and I had moved there for the peaceful life, but Karen turned it into a nightmare, especially when she targeted us over our backyard garden that she claimed violated some obscure rule about visual harmony. Things boiled over when we decided to take a much-needed vacation, boarding a flight where, by sheer coincidence, Karen was on the same plane. In a fit of entitlement, she demanded Emily's window seat, and when Emily politely refused, Karen hurled her hot coffee right at her, scalding her arm and causing a scene that left everyone stunned. But here's the twist no one saw coming. I'm not just some average Joe. Through years of smart investments and business savvy, I own and operate 42 regional airports across the U.S., giving me unparalleled influence in the aviation world. I didn't lash out right away. Instead, I played the long game, using my connections to expose Karen's shady HOA dealings, blacklist her from flying through my networks, and ultimately orchestrate her removal from power, turning her into the laughingstock of the neighborhood, while Emily and I emerged victorious, stronger than ever. It was a tale of patience, wits, and sweet justice that proved bullies like her always get what's coming. And by the end, our community was free from her grip, with me quietly reveling in the triumph of outsmarting her without ever breaking a law. Our story really kicks off about 5 years ago when Emily and I first bought our home in Willow Creek Estates, a picture-perfect subdivision on the outskirts of Denver with manicured lawns, white picket fences, and that quintessential American dream vibe. We were newlyweds back then, fresh off our honeymoon, and excited to settle down after years of apartment hopping. The house was modest, a 2-story colonial with a cozy front porch, and a backyard big enough for Emily's dream garden. She had always talked about growing her own vegetables, maybe even some flowers to brighten up the place. Little did we know, the HOA here was like a mini dictatorship. And at the helm was Karen Whitaker, a 50-something divorcee with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, a perpetual scowl, and an obsession with rules that bordered on pathological. From the moment we moved in, she made her presence known. Our welcome packet came with a thick binder of covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC&Rs, as she loved to abbreviate, and a personal note from her reminding us that compliance ensures harmony. Emily laughed it off at first, but I had a bad feeling. I'd heard stories from friends about overzealous HOAs, but I figured as long as we kept to ourselves, we'd be fine. It didn't take long for the first issue to arise. About a month in, we got a notice in the mail. Our mailbox was the wrong shade of black. Apparently, it was charcoal instead of ebony, and that violated Section 4.2 of the exterior guidelines. I rolled my eyes and repainted it, but Karen showed up unannounced the next day to inspect our progress. She stood there in her crisp khakis and polo shirt, clipboard in hand, peering over her glasses like a school principal. "Mr. Harlan," she said, her voice dripping with false politeness, "I appreciate your prompt attention to this matter. But do make sure the garden beds you're planning don't exceed the approved dimensions. We wouldn't want any encroachments." Emily, who was kneeling in the dirt planting tomatoes, looked up with a smile and said, "Oh, don't worry. We're sticking to the rules." Karen just hummed disapprovingly and walked away, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She thrived on control, and newcomers like us were prime targets. As the months went by, the petty enforcements piled up. One neighbor, old Mr. Jenkins, got fined $50 for leaving his garage door open too long while he tinkered with his classic car. Another family, the Patels, had their kids' swing set deemed unsightly because it wasn't painted in neutral tones. But Karen saved her sharpest barbs for us. Our garden became her fixation. Emily had turned it into a little oasis. Rows of heirloom tomatoes, zucchini vines, climbing trellises, even a small herb patch with basil and rosemary that filled the air with fragrant scents on warm evenings. We'd spend weekends out there, laughing and dirtying our hands, dreaming about the fresh salads we'd make. It was our escape from the stresses of work. I was building my business back then, quietly acquiring small regional airports through a holding company I'd started after college. It started with one run-down airstrip in rural Kansas that I bought on a whim, fixed up, and turned profitable by leasing it to cargo haulers. Over time, I expanded, buying undervalued properties, negotiating with FAA regulations, partnering with local governments. By the time we moved to Willow Creek, I had 15 under my belt, but I kept it low-key. No one in the neighborhood knew. To them, I was just a consultant who worked from home. Karen's first major strike came that fall. She sent a violation notice claiming our garden was overgrown and attracting pests, even though we'd seen no bugs beyond the usual ladybugs. The fine was $200, and we had 10 days to remedy it by tearing out half the plants. Emily was devastated. Those tomatoes were from seeds her grandmother had passed down, a family heirloom that connected her to memories of childhood summers. "This is ridiculous," she fumed, pacing the kitchen. "It's our property. Why does she get to dictate what we grow?" I tried to calm her, suggesting we appeal at the next HOA meeting. But deep down, I was seething too. I'd always been the type to avoid conflict, focusing on my business where logic and deals ruled, not arbitrary power plays. Still, I drafted a polite letter explaining the garden's compliance and attached photos. Karen's response? A curt email denying the appeal and adding another $50 for administrative fees. The HOA meetings were a spectacle in themselves, held monthly in the community clubhouse, a bland room with folding chairs, fluorescent lights, and a podium where Karen presided like a queen. Emily and I attended our first one armed with our evidence, hoping reason would prevail. The room was half full with resigned neighbors, most of whom avoided eye contact with Karen. She started with announcements, upcoming dues increases, reminders about trash bin placements. When it came to open forum, I stood up. "Regarding our garden violation," I began, keeping my tone even, "we believe it's within guidelines. Here's documentation." Karen interrupted with a saccharine smile. "Mr. Harlan, the board has reviewed this. The issue is aesthetic harmony. Your vegetable patch disrupts the uniform look we strive for." Murmurs rippled through the room, but no one spoke up. A guy named Tom from down the street later whispered to me, "She's got dirt on half the board. Don't push too hard." We paid the fine, but Emily scaled back the garden. Her enthusiasm dimmed. It hurt to see her like that, the spark in her eyes fading. Winter brought more nonsense. Karen organized a holiday decor contest, but then fined anyone whose lights weren't tasteful. Ours were simple white strands along the eaves, but she claimed they were too bright. Another $100. By spring, the tensions escalated. Karen started patrolling the neighborhood in her golf cart, binoculars in hand, noting infractions. One day, she caught Emily parking our car a foot over the driveway line while unloading groceries. "That's a safety hazard," she barked, issuing a warning on the spot. Emily, usually the picture of patience, snapped back, "It's groceries, Karen. Give me a break." The look Karen gave her could curdle milk. From then on, it felt personal. My business was booming meanwhile, shielded from the neighborhood drama. I'd acquired my 20th airport, a mid-sized one in Texas, and was negotiating for more. It involved long hours on calls, schmoozing with investors, navigating zoning laws. Emily supported me through it all, even as the HOA stress wore on her. We'd talk late at night about escaping, maybe moving, but the house was our investment, and uprooting wasn't easy. Then came the big blow. Karen proposed a new rule at a meeting, banning all vegetable gardens outright, citing potential health risks. It was aimed at us, no doubt. The vote passed because half the board were her cronies, friends she'd appointed after strong-arming resignations. Emily broke down in tears that night. "Why does she hate us so much?" she asked. I held her, vowing silently to fight back somehow. But I wasn't ready to reveal my ace yet. Summer rolled in, and with it, more petty power plays. Karen fined us for weeds that were actually wildflowers Emily had planted for pollinators. Neighbors started confiding in us, stories of Karen's abuses, like forcing one family to repaint their house because the beige was too sandy. A whisper campaign began, but no one dared challenge her openly. She had access to lawyers, or so she boasted, and threatened liens on properties for unpaid fines. Our tally was up to $600, straining our budget. Emily's job as a teacher didn't pay much, and my airport profits were reinvested. It was frustrating, watching this woman wield power like a weapon. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Emily suggested a vacation. "Let's get away from here, just us. Recharge." I agreed, booking tickets to Hawaii for our anniversary. It was a splurge, but we needed it. Little did we know, fate had a twist in store. As we packed, Karen dropped by with yet another notice. Our fence needed repainting. "Peeling in spots," she said smugly. I bit my tongue, thinking about the beaches ahead. The airport was bustling when we arrived for our flight. Denver International, not one of mine, but familiar territory. We checked in, grabbed coffee, and boarded. Emily had the window seat. She loved watching the takeoff. We settled in, excited. Then, horror. Karen boarded, spotting us with a sneer. "Well, if it isn't the Harlans," she said, plopping her bag in the overhead. Her seat was aisle across from us, but she wasn't satisfied. "I need the window," she demanded to Emily. "I get airsick without it." Emily politely declined. "Sorry, it's assigned," Karen huffed, then, in a rage, grabbed her coffee from the tray and flung it at Emily, splashing hot liquid across her arm. Emily yelped in pain, the cabin erupting in gasps. Flight attendants rushed over, but Karen played victim. "She provoked me!" That was the breaking point. As Emily got treated for burns, I seethed. Karen didn't know who she was messing with. My airports spanned the country. Regional hubs handling private jets, cargo, even commercial flights in smaller cities. I had pull with airlines, security, FAA officials. Revenge brewed as we flew, Emily bandaged but shaken. By landing, I had a plan forming. Back home, Karen doubled down, spreading rumors we caused the scene. But I started digging. Using my resources, I uncovered her secrets. Embezzling HOA funds for personal trips. Falsified board minutes. I anonymously tipped off authorities, but the real coup was aviation-related. Karen traveled often for conferences. I blacklisted her from my airports. No-fly lists for disruptive behavior. Shared with partners. Her next trip? Delayed, rerouted, humiliated. It escalated from there. At the next HOA meeting, I presented evidence of her misdeeds, backed by lawyers I'd hired quietly. Neighbors rallied. Karen's face when she realized my power? Priceless. She lost her position, faced fines, even moved away. Emily and I? We thrived. Garden restored. Community grateful. Triumph tasted sweet. The flight to Hawaii was supposed to be our escape. A week of sun-soaked beaches, Mai Tais, and forgetting all about Karen's tyranny back in Willow Creek. But instead, it became the spark that ignited everything. With Emily nursing her scalded arm wrapped in a makeshift bandage from the flight attendant's kit, while I sat there boiling inside, replaying the moment Karen's coffee splashed across her skin like it was in slow motion. The cabin had gone silent after the incident, passengers whispering and staring, some pulling out phones to record, but thinking better of it when the crew intervened swiftly. escorting Karen to a different seat up front where she sat fuming, occasionally shooting glares our way that could melt steel. Emily was tough. She'd dealt with rowdy kids in her classroom and my late nights building the business. But this hurt her deeply. Not just the physical burn that left red welts on her forearm, but the humiliation of being attacked over something as trivial as a seat. Why would she do that? She whispered to me through tears as the plane leveled off, the Rocky Mountains shrinking below us. I held her hand, promising we'd report it, get compensation, make sure she faced consequences, but in my mind, wheels were already turning far beyond a simple airline complaint. My airports weren't just dots on a map. They formed a network that touched lives in ways people like Karen couldn't imagine. Contracts with major carriers, influence over regional air traffic, even ties to TSA protocols for passenger screening. I'd built it from nothing, starting with that first Kansas strip where I'd learned to negotiate leases with farmers who doubled as pilots, expanding to places like small hubs in Ohio and Montana, where cargo flights kept rural economies alive. Owning 42 meant power, quiet power, the kind that could reroute lives without fanfare. By the time we landed in Honolulu, the airline had comped our stay upgrades and offered vouchers, apologizing profusely while Karen slunk off the plane with security escort, muttering about lawsuits and how we'd regret it. Emily wanted to press charges right there, but the burn needed medical attention first. A quick stop at urgent care confirmed second-degree blisters, ointment prescribed, and a report filed with the police for assault. I snapped photos of everything, evidence piling up, but I held back on revealing my full hand. Instead, over dinner that night at a beachside luau, with the ocean waves crashing and ukulele music in the air, I started plotting. "She's not getting away with this," I told Emily, her eyes lighting up for the first time since the splash. "But we do it smart, not rash," she nodded, squeezing my hand. And for the rest of the trip, we focused on healing, snorkeling in crystal waters, hiking volcanic trails where the earthy scent of lava rock mixed with tropical flowers, rebuilding our spark amid the paradise. Texts from neighbors trickled in. Karen had emailed the HOA board claiming we were disruptive influences and pushing for more fines on our absent house, even suggesting a lien if we didn't respond. It fueled my resolve. Back home a week later, tanned but battle-ready, the real digging began. I set up in my home office, a converted bedroom lined with screens tracking flight data from my airports, real-time feeds of takeoffs, landings, fuel logistics. First, I pulled the flight manifest through a contact at the airline. Karen's full name, address, travel history popped up easily. She'd been flying frequently, often on discounted tickets she shouldn't qualify for, perks skimmed from HOA funds. My IT guy, a whiz I'd hired for airport security systems, ran background checks while I cross-referenced with public records. Turns out, Karen Whitaker wasn't just a busybody. Her ex-husband had left her with debts, and she'd been siphoning community dues for years. Personal shopping coded as maintenance supplies, luxury hotel stays billed as association conferences. One airport in Florida I'd acquired had hosted a so-called HOA seminar she'd attended. Invoices matched suspiciously. I compiled it all anonymously, tipping off a local investigative reporter who owed me a favor from a story on aviation safety I'd helped with. But the airport angle was my secret weapon. Karen loved to travel, boasting about it at meetings, Europe in spring, cruises in fall. With my network, I could make that hell. I started small, flagged her in shared aviation databases for disruptive passenger behavior, a label that sticks like glue. Airlines share blacklists for safety. One call to partners, and she's on watch lists across my 42 properties and affiliates. Her next planned trip, a retreat to Vegas funded by more dubious HOA money, got bumpy. She arrived at Denver, only to be pulled for extra screening. Her bags searched thoroughly. Flight delayed indefinitely due to security concerns. Texts from neighbors said she ranted about it on the community Facebook group, blaming technical glitches and vowing revenge on the system. Emily and I chuckled over coffee in our restored garden, the tomatoes ripening again since we'd ignored her latest notices. Escalation came when she amped up attacks on us. A certified letter arrived. $500 fine for unapproved vacation absence, made-up rule, and threats to tow our car if not painted to spec. Neighbors whispered she'd been peeking in windows while we were gone, noting suspicious activity. It was stalking, plain and simple. Emily's burn had healed into a faint scar, a reminder she touched daily, fueling her fire. "Let's fight back publicly," she urged. I agreed, timing it perfectly. At the next HOA meeting, packed now with curious residents tired of her reign, I attended with a lawyer friend from my business circles, specializing in real estate disputes. Karen smirked from the podium, her blonde bob impeccable as she droned about budgets. When open forum hit, I stood. "Before we approve anything, let's discuss transparency," I said calmly, projecting emails onto the screen I'd set up. Evidence of her embezzlement. $10,000 missing here, $5,000 there. Gasps echoed. "How did you get this?" She sputtered, face reddening. "That's when I dropped the first bomb." Sources close to her travels. Like the conference in Miami, where association funds paid for spa treatments. The room erupted. Mr. Jenkins stood up, revealing his own fines were bribes to keep quiet. Karen tried to adjourn, but the board, shaken, called for a vote on her removal. It failed narrowly, her cronies holding line, but cracks formed. Outside, allies approached us. The Patels with stories of racism-tinged inspections, Tom with proof she'd forged signatures. We formed a shadow committee, meeting secretly in backyards under string lights, the summer air thick with barbecue smoke and conspiracy whispers. Emily shone here, her teacher empathy drawing people out, compiling petitions while I handled legal muscle. My airports played a subtler role still. Karen tried flying to a legal consult in Chicago, my turf, via a connecting flight through one of my Midwest hubs. I ensured delays. Weather holds that weren't. Maintenance checks on her plane that dragged on. She missed connections, stranded overnight in terminals where my staff accidentally bumped her from lounges. She posted rants online, calling it persecution, unaware it was me pulling strings from afar. One night, over wine on our porch, Emily laughed. "She's unraveling." Indeed, her patrols grew erratic, fining randomly, alienating even loyalists. The emotional toll hit hard midway. Emily had nightmares about the coffee throw, waking sweaty and angry, questioning if revenge was worth the stress. "We're becoming like her," she confided during a walk through the neighborhood parks, kids playing freely now that rules laxed unofficially. I reassured her, this was justice, not pettiness, exposing corruption for the greater good. My business taught me patience. Airports don't build overnight. Deals take months of negotiation. Similarly, I invested time, hiring a PI to tail her, uncovering more, affairs with board members, tax evasion hints, costs mounted, dipping into savings, but triumphs like acquiring my 35th airport that month balanced it, a reminder of my capability. Tension peaked when Karen confronted us directly. She banged on our door one evening, disheveled, eyes wild. "Whatever you're doing, stop. I know it's you ruining my trips." Emily, brave as ever, opened it slightly. "Ruining? Like you ruined my skin?" Karen lunged verbally, threats spilling, but I recorded it all on my phone. Police report filed. Restraining order in motion. Neighbors saw, support swelled. The community forum buzzed with anti-Karen sentiment. As summer faded to fall, leaves turning gold in Willow Creek, we prepped for the big showdown. An emergency HOA election. I revealed a bit more of my world then. Not airports yet. but enough influence to bring in experts testifying to her fraud. Karen fought dirty, spreading lies about our garden harboring vermin, even salting our lawn to kill grass. But we countered with unity. Emily organized a block party, everyone sharing stories, bonds forming over potluck dishes and laughter. It healed us too, reminding why we fought. Little did Karen know, my final ace loomed, tying her directly to aviation disruptions that would expose her entitlement fully. One more trip planned, one more humiliation brewing. Revenge was close, triumph within grasp. The air in Willow Creek had that crisp fall bite now, leaves crunching underfoot. As Emily and I walked our dog Max through the winding paths lined with houses decked out in subtle Halloween decorations, pumpkins glowing softly on porches, despite Karen's decree that anything too orange violated the seasonal palette guidelines. It was a small rebellion, one of many bubbling up since our shadow committee started meeting, and it felt good to see neighbors pushing back, even if it was just with a rogue cobweb or a skeleton dangling from a tree. But beneath the festive facade, the pressure cooker was hissing hotter than ever. Karen, sensing her grip slipping, had gone into overdrive, calling emergency inspections at dawn and blasting accusatory emails about conspiracy theorists undermining our community's integrity. One message singled out our house, claiming we'd violated noise ordinances with suspicious late-night gatherings. Code for our backyard strategy sessions, where we'd huddle around a fire pit, faces illuminated by flames, sharing wine and war stories while the scent of roasting marshmallows masked the seriousness of it all. Emily laughed it off over breakfast one morning, buttering toast with that defiant sparkle back in her eyes, but I could see the worry lines etching deeper around her mouth. The coffee scar on her arm had faded to a thin pink line, but it itched in the dry air, a phantom reminder that pulled her back to that plane every time Karen's name came up. "Do you think we're safe?" she asked quietly, glancing at the window as if expecting the golf cart patrol to roll by. I pulled her close, smelling the lavender shampoo she always used, and whispered, "Safer than she's ever been. We're ending this soon." And I meant it. My airports were the unseen arsenal, a web of runways and radar towers stretching from dusty strips in Arizona to foggy fields in Maine, each one a node in a system I'd engineered to be resilient, profitable, and utterly unforgiving to those who crossed its thresholds. The emergency HOA election was set for mid-October. A hastily called affair after our evidence dump at the last meeting had forced even her cronies to feign outrage over the missing funds. Karen had lawyered up, a sleazy firm known for defending shady real estate deals, and she paraded them around like bodyguards, her voice amplified in community blasts, declaring the witch hunt over. But we'd been busy too. Emily's petition drive had garnered signatures from 60% of the neighborhood, each one a testament etched with personal grievances. The widow who'd been fined for bird feeders that attracted vermin, the young couple hit with fees for solar panels that clashed aesthetically. I want to funneled anonymous donations through my business shell to cover printing costs and even hired a neutral mediator, a retired judge friend from a Denver airport expansion deal, to oversee the vote. Nights blurred into strategy sessions in our living room, papers strewn across the coffee table amid half-eaten pizzas, the glow of laptops casting shadows that danced like co-conspirators. Max snored at our feet, oblivious, while Emily sketched timelines on a whiteboard, her markers squeaking with purpose. "If we win the vote, we audit everything," she'd say, capping the pen with a click. No more hiding behind rules. My contributions were quieter, cross-checking flight logs to map Karen's next move. She had a ticket booked for a deposition prep in Las Vegas, ironically on a carrier that routed through 3 of my hubs. I didn't touch it yet. Timing was everything, like sequencing cargo loads to avoid bottlenecks. One wrong pull, and the whole plane grounds. Halloween night brought an unexpected breather. A community event we'd co-opted from Karen's ironclad script into something joyful. Instead of her mandated elegant affair with black tie masks, we turned the clubhouse into a trunk-or-treat extravaganza. Cars lined up with trunks transformed into haunted scenes, kids in costumes shrieking with delight as candy rained down. Emily dressed as a fierce pirate queen, eye patch over one eye and a sword at her hip, handing out treats with a wink and a "Arr! Take that, ye tyrants!" I went as a shadowy airport controller, complete with a headset and a vest stitched with tiny plane patches, a subtle nod to my secret world. Karen showed up fashionably late, her witch costume more Stepford than spooky, green face paint cracking as she forced smiles for photos. But the vibe had shifted. Whispers followed her like ghosts, and when Mr. Jenkins's grandkids dumped a handful of fake spiders in her path as a prank, she yelped so loud it echoed. Laughter rippled, genuine, cathartic. And for a moment, she looked small, isolated amid the pumpkin spice lattes and fog machines. Emily caught my eye across the room, her pirate grin triumphant, and mouthed, "Almost there." That night, as we collapsed on the couch amid candy wrappers, the adrenaline crash hit. She curled into me, head on my chest, listening to my heartbeat. "Remember why we started this?" she murmured. "Not just the garden or the finds. It's about feeling safe in our own home." I kissed her forehead, tasting salt from the evening's sweat, and vowed silently to make it real. The days leading to the election were a gauntlet of guerrilla tactics. Karen ramped up her smears, door-to-door flyers accusing us of outsider meddling and hinting at my shady business dealings. She'd sniffed around, maybe hired her own PI, but all she'd find were legit filings for Harlan Aviation Holdings, LLC, a name buried under layers of trusts. It stung a bit, the invasion, but it backfired. Neighbors saw through it, one couple even baking us thank you pies with notes saying, "You're our heroes." Emily fielded the emotional calls, the late-night voicemails from folks too scared to speak publicly, her voice steady as she coached them. "Write it down. Sign it. We've got your back." Meanwhile, I executed the aviation squeeze. Her Vegas flight? I greenlit a routine FAA audit at my Albuquerque connector, tying up the gate for hours with inspectors combing manifests. Nothing illegal, just by-the-book diligence that snowballed into cascading delays. She boarded late, frazzled, only to face turbulence that forced an unscheduled stop in Phoenix, another of my outposts where lounge access glitched and left her pacing terminals in heels. A neighbor forwarded her furious group chat rant. "This is sabotage. Someone's out to get me!" We screenshotted it all, ammo for the meeting. Election night crackled with energy. The clubhouse packed wall to wall, folding chairs scraping as people filed in under a harvest moon that bathed the parking lot in silver. The air smelled of coffee and tension. Fluorescent hum overhead mixing with murmurs. Karen took the podium first, her lawyer flanking her like a pit bull, voice shrill as she decried baseless allegations and waved dismissed audit reports. Fudged, we'd later prove. Then it was our turn. Emily spoke first. No notes, just raw honesty. "This isn't about one person. It's about all of us. Families like the Patels, who just want to grill without fear. Or Mr. Jenkins, who can't enjoy his birds without a fine. Karen's rules stole our peace. Let's take it back." Applause thundered, sustained. And when I followed with the hard evidence, bank statements, timestamps linking her trips to diverted dues, the room ignited. "How do you explain the $8,000 to the Ritz-Carlton, Karen? Association retreat or personal spa day?" Her face drained of color, green witch makeup from the party still faintly smudged, as she stammered denials. The vote was by secret ballot, boxes passed hand to hand, and as tallies came in, the shift was palpable. 68% against her, a landslide that echoed with cheers. But triumph soured fast. In the chaos of victory, Karen's lawyer cornered me outside, breath hot with coffee, hissing, "You'll regret this, Harlan. We know about your little empire. Airports, right? One word to the feds about unreported holdings. Bluff, probably, but it chilled me." Emily, overhearing, paled, grabbing my arm. "They can't touch us," I assured her later, as we drove home through fog-shrouded streets, headlights cutting swaths. But doubt crept in. My airports were clean, audited yearly, but scrutiny could tie up deals, scare investors. That night sleep evaded us. Emily tossed, murmuring about the plane again, the splash, while I stared at the ceiling, calculating risks. Max whined from his bed, sensing the unrest. By dawn, resolve hardened. We'd expose her fully. No holds barred. The fallout unfolded in waves. New board installed. Immediate audit launched. Uncovering $25,000 skimmed over 2 years. Karen went radio silent. Her golf cart mothballed, but retaliation simmered. Our mailbox got vandalized. "Thief," scrawled in red lipstick. Her shade, Emily noted with a shudder. Police dusted for prints, but nothing stuck. Then the real gut punch. Anonymous tips to my business contacts. Whispers of HOA scandals tainting Harlan Aviation. A deal for a 43rd airport in Oregon stalled. Bankers citing reputational risks. Rage boiled. This woman wouldn't poison what I'd built from late-night spreadsheets and grease monkey fixes on tarmacs slick with rain. Emily saw it in my eyes during breakfast, the untouched eggs congealing. "Use it all," she said fiercely, fingers tracing her scar. "The airports. Show her what real power looks like." So I did, escalating to full throttle. Karen's next escape attempt, a frantic booking to Mexico, fleeing the audit summons, hit my network like a storm. First hub in Texas. Baggage lost. System error. Second in California. Denied boarding for incomplete documentation. My TSA liaison enforcing picky protocols. She drove instead, wild-eyed at the border, only to get flagged for a routine check that uncovered outstanding warrants from the HOA fraud probe. Stranded, humiliated, her empire crumbled as news hit local papers. HOA president faces embezzlement charges. Neighbors toasted us at an impromptu bonfire. Flames leaping high. But Emily and I slipped away early, needing quiet. In bed, she whispered, "It's working." But is it enough? Almost, I thought, as winter winds howled outside. The final confrontation loomed, one that would tie her downfall to the skies forever, leaving no doubt who'd won. The winter chill had settled over Willow Creek like a heavy blanket, snow dusting the rooftops and turning our once vibrant gardens into dormant patches under a layer of frost. But the warmth inside our home burned brighter than ever, fueled by the community's newfound freedom and the sweet scent of victory wafting through the air like fresh-baked cookies from neighbors' ovens, dropping off thank yous at our door. Emily and I spent evenings by the fireplace, logs crackling and popping as we sipped hot cocoa spiked with a dash of whiskey, recounting the election night cheers that still echoed in our minds, her laughter mingling with the flames as she traced patterns on my knee. The scar on her arm now just a faint memory line that caught the firelight. The new HOA board, elected with folks like Tom and Mrs. Patel at the helm, had wasted no time rolling back Karen's draconian rules. Vegetable gardens were encouraged now, swing sets painted in rainbows if you wanted, and fines were reserved for actual issues like leaking roofs endangering shared walls. Dues dropped too, the skimmed money refunded in prorated checks that felt like justice deposited straight into bank accounts. But Karen? She hadn't vanished quietly into the snowy night. Oh no. She hunkered down in her McMansion 2 blocks over, curtains drawn tight, her lawyer filing motions to dismiss charges while she plotted from the shadows, Her golf cart traded for heated phone calls that neighbors overheard snippets of. Threats of countersuits, whispers of digging deeper into my past. It gnawed at me during quiet moments, staring out at the flurries swirling like tiny airports in miniature, wondering if my empire of runways and radar blips could weather her desperation. I'd built Harlan Aviation from that first Kansas field where I'd bunked in a trailer, eating ramen while fixing potholes with my own hands, expanding to 4229 CT299 strong by spotting opportunities others missed, like converting old military strips into eco-friendly cargo hubs powered by solar arrays glinting under vast skies. It was my legacy, untouchable. Or so I thought, until her barbs started landing closer to the tarmac. The first real counterpunch came mid-December, just as holiday lights twinkled defiantly across the neighborhood in a riot of colors Karen once banned. An anonymous email blast hit every inbox in Willow Creek. Subject line screaming, "The truth about your so-called heroes," attaching grainy photos of me at airport ribbon cuttings, headlines from business journals about acquisitions, twisted into accusations of absentee slumlord, profiting off dangerous skies while neglecting community duties. It was clever. Half-truths spun from public records. My low profile shattered. Neighbors glancing curiously as we shoveled driveways side by side. Emily read it over my shoulder in the kitchen, steam from her tea fogging her glasses, her face paling. "She's trying to turn them against us," she said, voice trembling not with fear but fury, slamming the laptop shut so hard Max barked from his spot by the heater. We called an emergency meeting of our allies at the clubhouse, now redecorated with string lights and a communal coffee pot that actually worked. The room buzzing with indignation as Tom projected the email on the wall. "This is harassment," Mrs. Patel declared, her voice steady from years of standing up to microaggressions. "We voted to sue for defamation, my lawyer, now on retainer thanks to airport dividends, drafting papers that night. But privately, Emily worried aloud during a midnight talk, snow tapping the windows like impatient fingers. What if it affects your business? Investors spook easy." She was right. Calls started coming from partners, questions about local controversies. One deal for a New Mexico expansion teetering. I reassured her with a kiss, tasting the salt of her tears, but inside, resolve steeled. This ends now. With her tasting the altitude she so carelessly flung coffee from. Christmas Eve brought the escalation we needed. Karen, cornered by subpoenas, booked a last-minute flight to her sisters in Florida. A red-eye routing through my Atlanta hub, and then Orlando Regional. Both mine, ironclad. I didn't hesitate. From my office command center, screens alive with flight trackers beeping like holiday greetings, I orchestrated the perfect storm. First, a security alert flagged her at check-in. Nothing fabricated, just amplified scrutiny from the plane incident report I'd ensured circulated in databases. TSA pulled her aside, wands waving. Bags unpacked in full view of holiday travelers who muttered about Karen's ruining Christmas. Delayed 2 hours, she boarded frazzled, only for the Atlanta connection to hit mechanical issues. A routine part swap I expedited to drag on, grounding her plane while mine taxied smoothly elsewhere. Stranded in the terminal amid crying kids and overpriced pretzels, she raged on her phone, voice carrying to recorded lines I'd tipped off a contact to monitor. "This is that Harlan bastard," she screeched, words slurring from airport bar indulgence. Bingo. Evidence of admission, harassment laced with threats. Emily and I watched the drama unfold via live feeds, her hand in mine on the couch, giggling like kids ourselves as we strung popcorn for the tree. "Merry Christmas to us," she toasted with eggnog, the warmth spreading through us both. But revenge has layers, like icing on a Yule log, and I peeled deeper. Post-Christmas, with the neighborhood buried in post-holiday bliss. Kids sledding on forbidden hills, families hosting potlucks without approval forms, the audit results dropped like a blizzard. Forensic accountants, funded by community donations I matched anonymously, uncovered not just embezzlement, but kickbacks from contractors Karen favored for repairs that never happened, pocketing rebates while roofs leaked. News vans parked outside her house, reporters knocking as she peeked through blinds, her blonde hair disheveled for the first time in memory. The defamation suit advanced, too, judge granting a temporary order barring her from online smears. Neighbors rallied harder, a GoFundMe for legal fees hitting goal in hours. Messages pouring in. You gave us our homes back. Emily thrived in it, organizing a New Year's Eve party at our place. Backyard fire pit, roaring despite the cold. Sparks flying up to stars that mirrored distant runway lights. She danced in the snow, boots crunching, pulling me into a twirl that melted the frost on my heart. "We're winning," she breathed, breath visible in the air. But her eyes held a shadow, the emotional weight of it all. The nights she'd cried over what Karen stole from us, the simple joy of planting seeds without fear. January thawed tensions into action. Karen's court date loomed for the assault on the plane, airline finally pressing charges after my subtle nudges. And her Florida flop had left her isolated, sister disowning her over the scandal. She tried one last power play, crashing a board meeting uninvited, bursting in with wild eyes and a stack of counter-evidence, claiming forged documents and victimhood. The room fell silent. New President Tom banging a gavel borrowed from who knows where. "You're trespassing," he said firmly. Security, hired for the first time ever, escorting her out as she screamed obscenities. Emily filmed it discreetly, the video going viral in local Facebook groups, comments flooding with popcorn emojis and justice memes. But it hit close. That night, our garage was egged, yellow streaks freezing on the door like accusations. Police upped patrols, but the violation stung. Our sanctuary breached. We installed cameras, my airport security tech adapted for home, motion sensors beeping like gate alarms. Sleep came fitful, Emily clinging tight, whispering fears of escalation. What if she snaps completely? I held her, drawing strength from memories of building my first tower, hands blistered from climbing scaffolds, resilience forged in heights. My response was calculated altitude adjustment. Karen rescheduled travel, this time driving to a safe house in Arizona. But en route, she booked motels with cards tied to HOA accounts, frozen now by the board. Starving for escape, she attempted a private charter from a small strip near the border. Not mine, but affiliated through a partnership I'd nurtured over golf games and deals. I pulled strings, FAA grounding order for paperwork discrepancies, pilot reassigned, leaving her stranded in a dusty lot with tumbleweeds rolling like escaped fines. Photos leaked online. Her pacing, phone to ear, face twisted in defeat. Back home, it broke her further. Eviction notices from her bank for unpaid mortgages exposed in the audit. House on the market by spring. Community whispers turned to pity, then indifference. She was yesterday's tyrant. Valentine's Day marked a pivot. Emily surprising me with a homemade dinner, candles flickering on the table where garden plans once stressed us. "To us," she toasted, eyes misty, the scar a badge now. We'd healed, but the finale brewed, tying her downfall directly to the skies, a public humiliation that would echo in court. My 42 airports hummed with activity, cargo planes roaring overhead in my mind, ready to deliver the knockout. As snow melted into mud, hints of green peeking through, we prepped for the trial, evidence stacked like luggage. Karen's empire was rubble. Ours soared. The emotional core deepened here, friends becoming family through shared battles. Late-night calls venting frustrations turned triumphs. Mr. Jenkins gifted us birdseed for our feeders. In honor of freedom, he chuckled, eyes twinkling. The Patels invited us to Diwali leftovers, spices warming the soul. It wasn't just revenge. It restored faith in community, in standing up. Emily's nightmares faded, replaced by dreams of expansion. Maybe a bigger garden, a family someday. Me? I eyed Airport 43, deals rebounding stronger from the scrutiny. Karen's last gasp came via a plea deal offer, but we pushed for full accountability. The coffee throw a symbol of her entitlement. As March wines whipped, court summoned us all, testimonies ready, Airport's my silent witness. One final twist loomed, ensuring her wings clipped forever. Triumph not just won, but etched in contrails across the sky. The courtroom smelled like old varnish and stale coffee, the kind that clung to the air in municipal buildings where fates got decided under harsh lights that buzzed faintly overhead. And there I sat beside Emily on a wooden bench worn smooth from years of anxious fidgeters, her hand squeezing mine so tight I could feel her pulse racing like a runway approach in turbulence. It was early April now, the snow long melted into muddy streams trickling along Willow Creek curbs, cherry blossoms budding defiantly in neighbors' yards, as if celebrating the end of winter's grip. And Karen's. The trial for her embezzlement and assault charges had finally landed, a culmination of months of filings, depositions, and that ever-present undercurrent of revenge that had kept us awake on nights when spring rains pattered against the windows like impatient fingers drumming for justice. Emily looked stunning in a simple navy dress, her hair pulled back to reveal the faint scar on her arm. Now, a deliberate choice. No sleeves to hide it. A visual testament she'd reference in testimony. "This mark isn't just skin," she'd practiced saying in the mirror that morning, voice steady, but eyes fierce. Me? I wore my best suit, the one from airport investor meetings, tie knotted with the precision of a pre-flight checklist. Karen shuffled in across the aisle, flanked by her lawyer whose suit looked rented and rumpled, her once impeccable blonde bob now streaked with hasty dye jobs and grown-out roots, face gaunt from stress that had stripped the smugness away, layer by layer. She avoided our gaze, but I caught her glancing at my phone on my lap, where airport apps pinged quietly with updates, 42 operations humming smoothly, a reminder of the power she'd poked like a sleeping giant. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with silver hair and glasses perched on her nose, called the court to order with a gavel crack that echoed like a gate slamming shut. Prosecutors laid out the case first. Bank records projected on a screen showing diverted HOA funds, $37,000 total now, funneled into personal accounts for vacations, designer bags, even a tummy tuck billed as community wellness seminars. Witnesses took the stand one by one, Tom detailing forged minutes, Mrs. Patel recounting coerced votes, Mr. Jenkins with his bird feeder fines that masked bribes. The room was packed with Willow Creek folks who'd carpooled in support, their murmurs a low hum of solidarity that made Emily squeeze my hand again, whispering, "Look at what we built." Karen's defense tried to spin it as administrative errors, her lawyer droning about overburdened volunteers, but cross-examinations shredded that, like cheap ticket stubs. Then came the assault charge, tied in as pattern of behavior, flight attendant testimony via video, photos of Emily's burn, my own statement about the chaos at 30,000 feet. When Emily testified, her voice didn't waver. She threw scalding coffee because I wouldn't give up my seat. It wasn't about air sickness. It was control. The same control she exerted on our neighborhood for years. The jury, everyday people like us, one a teacher, another a mechanic, leaned forward, empathy etching their faces. Karen squirmed, her lawyer objecting futilely. My turn on the stand felt like taxiing to take off, heart pounding, but controls firm. Prosecutors asked about my role in uncovering the fraud. I kept it vague at first. Business networks provided insights. But when defense implied coercion, I let a bit slip. As someone who manages aviation assets across the country, I understand systems and how they're abused. Karen's travels on stolen funds raised flags. Gasps rippled. The judge's eyebrow arched. Karen's eyes widened, realization dawning. She connected dots to her travel hells. Outside breaks, neighbors hugged us in the hallway. Coffee from a vending machine tasting like victory. The fluorescent hum, now a backdrop to whispers of, "She's done." But emotion crested during recess. Emily stepped out for air, leaning against a pillar, tears finally spilling. "It's real now," she said, voice cracking. "All those fines, the fear, it's ending." I held her amid the echoing corridors, smelling her perfume mixed with courthouse dust, promising this was the climb to cruising altitude. Back in session, Karen took the stand, a mistake her lawyer couldn't prevent. Under oath, she crumbled, admitting borrowings but blaming stress, then snapping about the plane. "That woman provoked me!" The prosecutor pounced, introducing my compiled evidence of her disrupted trips, not as sabotage, but consequences of reported behavior. Printouts of delay logs from my hubs, anonymized but damning. Passenger Whitaker, Karen, multiple incidents of entitlement leading to enhanced screenings. Jurors murmured. One nodded knowingly, perhaps a frequent flyer, tired of Karen's. Her meltdown sealed it, yelling about that airport mogul ruining my life, pointing at me wildly. The judge banged the gavel, contempt charges added like extra baggage fees. Court adjourned for deliberation, and we waited in a side room, Emily pacing while I checked airport feeds, flights landing smoothly in Denver, cargo unloading in Texas, life persisting beyond this drama. Verdict came swift. Guilty on all counts. Embezzlement, assault, even harassment from the egging traced via cameras to her car. Sentencing later, but restitution ordered immediately. $50,000 to the HOA plus damages to Emily for medical and pain. Karen sobbed as bailiffs led her away. Her empire not just clipped, but crash-landed. Outside, media swarmed. Local news chanting, "HOA tyrant toppled." Neighbors cheering like a block party erupted on the courthouse steps. Emily and I posed for photos, her arm raised to show the scar, a symbol now of resilience. "We did this together," she said to cameras, voice beaming. Hugs all around, Mr. Jenkins slipping me a bird whistle as a joke gift for calling the shots. But the win hit home harder that night, back in Willow Creek, where spring peepers chorused in the warming air. We hosted a celebration barbecue, smoke from grills wafting with the scent of ribs and veggie skewers from our revived garden. Tomatoes sprouting already under grow lights Emily tended like old friends. Laughter filled the yard. Kids running free without rule fears. Tom toasting with beer. "To the Harlans, who grounded the witch," Emily glowed, dancing to music from a speaker, pulling me into the fray until we collapsed on lawn chairs, stars overhead like distant runway lights. Yet amid joy, reflection sunk in. Conversations turning deep over pie slices, neighbors sharing how Karen's reign had isolated them, eroded trust. "You gave us community back," Mrs. Patel said, eyes misty. Emily teared up too, admitting later in bed, sheets cool against skin. "I was scared we'd lose ourselves in the fight." I kissed her, tasting salt and sweetness. We found more of us. My airports factored in the finale subtly still. Post-trial, Karen's assets frozen, but she tried one desperate play. A media tour claiming victimhood, booking flights to New York for talk shows. My network shut it down. Permanent no-fly on affiliates for safety risks. shared industry-wide. She drove instead, breakdowns en route making tabloids, her story fizzling into obscurity. Business boomed for me. Scrutiny from the scandal actually highlighted my ops. Investors calling with congrats. Airport 43 sealed in Oregon with fanfare. Community ties deepened. I sponsored a Willow Creek scholarship for aviation-interested kids. Emily teaching a class on resilience using our tale. Summer hinted in blooming flowers, but loose ends nagged. Karen's sentencing approached. Probation likely. Community service mowing the parks she once fined over. We attended, not for glee but closure, her apology court-mandated and hollow, eyes downcast. Judge warned, power abused crashes hard. Outside, Emily exhaled. It's over. But was it? Whispers of appeal, yet her spirit broken. House sold at loss to a young family who planted wildflowers immediately. Emotional layers peeled back in quiet moments. Therapy sessions, Emily suggested, unpacking the trauma of that splash. My own stress from empire threats. It bonded us deeper. Dates reignited. Picnics in the garden where herbs scented the breeze. Talks of kids someday. Airports as family legacy. Neighbors became kin. Block watches turned socials. Cho-A now, a helpful co-op with potlucks mandatory fun. As fall trials faded to memory, one last aviation bow. I rerouted a charity flight over Willow Creek, banner trailing Freedom Soars, skywriting that had everyone gazing up, phones out, cheers rising. Karen, from her new apartment in a drab suburb, saw it on news, final nail. Triumph wasn't loud. It was this: peace, growth, wings unfurled without fear. The resolution beckoned, community rebuilt, love fortified. A new chapter taxiing ahead with clear skies and no turbulence in sight. The sun hung low over Willow Creek Estates one late summer evening, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink that mirrored the wildflowers now spilling over fences without a single violation notice in sight. And Emily and I sat on our front porch swing, gently rocking as Max chased fireflies across the lawn that had once been salted in spite by a fallen tyrant. It had been a full year since the courtroom gavel fell, sealing Karen Whitaker's fate with probation terms that included 500 hours of community service, mowing the very parks she'd policed with her clipboard and golf cart, picking up trash along the paths where neighbors now strolled freely, her once crisp khakis traded for orange vests that screamed humility to anyone who recognized her. We'd heard through the grapevine that she muttered apologies under her breath during shifts, eyes darting away from former victims like us, her blonde hair gone gray at the temples from stress that no spa day could erase. But for Emily and me, the real victory wasn't watching her toil. It was this quiet reclaiming of our lives. The garden bursting with tomatoes so plump they burst on the vine, their juicy sweetness a far cry from the withered dreams Karen had tried to fine out of existence. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder, her fingers interlaced with mine, tracing the calluses from years of gripping briefcases in airport negotiations rather than tools anymore. My hands had softened a bit since delegating the grunt work, but the mind behind them stayed sharp, overseeing 42 airports that now numbered 45 after seamless expansions into Colorado's high plains, and a boutique strip in Napa for wine country execs. Remember when this porch was just a place to dread mail delivery? She said softly, her voice carrying the lilt of laughter earned through battles. I chuckled, pulling her closer, inhaling the scent of basil from the pots lining the steps, and replied, now it's where we plan adventures, not defenses. The neighborhood had transformed, too. HOA meetings turned into barbecues, dues funding playground upgrades and community gardens where kids learned to plant seeds. Tom presiding with a gavel that doubled as a meat tenderizer for cook-offs, Mrs. Patel organizing cultural festivals that filled the air with samosas and mariachi, blending the subdivision into a tapestry richer than any uniform beige Karen enforced. Life post-trial unfolded like a smooth takeoff. No delays or turbulence to speak of, though the early days carried lingering echoes that we confronted head-on. Emily dove into therapy, unpacking the coffee assault not just as a physical scar, but an emotional burn that had scorched her sense of safety. Sessions where she'd come home teary but lighter, sharing insights over dinner like how vulnerability strengthened us. I thought revenge would fill the hole, she confessed one night, as we harvested zucchini under string lights, the blades of the knife slicing cleanly through vines heavy with produce. But it's the healing after that mends it. I joined a few sessions, too, admitting how Karen's digs at my business had stirred old insecurities, from that first Kansas airstrip where banks laughed at my loans, to nights wondering if one bad weather season would ground everything. Owning up bonded us deeper. Intimacy reignited in small ways, like surprise picnics in the backyard oasis she'd cultivated. Blankets spread amid blooming marigolds where we'd make love under the stars. Bodies entwined without the weight of warrants or whispers. My airports became part of the therapy, too. Weekend getaways on private charters from my fleet, whisking her to coastal runways where waves crashed against cliffs, or mountain strips dusted with snow, reminding us both of the heights we'd climbed together. The network grew not just in size, but purpose. I implemented anti-harassment protocols industry-wide, inspired by our story, training staff to spot entitlement early and de-escalate, turning personal pain into systemic good. Investors loved it. Stocks in Harlan Aviation soaring. Headlines praising the mogul who grounded a bully. Features that brought speaking gigs where I'd share stages with FAA officials, subtly weaving in tales of community triumph without naming names. The neighborhood's evolution mirrored our own, a phoenix rising from fined ashes that brought unexpected friendships and forgiveness ripples. Mr. Jenkins became a fixture at our dinner table, his war stories from Huard blending with aviation anecdotes I'd spin, his eyes lighting up when I gifted him a model plane from a vintage collection sourced from one of my hangars. "Boy, you gave us wings," he'd say, puffing his pipe on the porch, smoke curling like contrails. The Patels invited us to family weddings, dances where Emily twirled in saris, her laughter echoing over curry spices that warmed the soul deeper than any rule ever could. We hosted workshops, too. Emily teaching gardening resilience, me on entrepreneurship, kids wide-eyed as I explained how a rundown field becomes a hub connecting worlds. Karen's old cronies scattered. Some apologized sheepishly at block parties, others moved away. Their houses snapped up by young families who painted doors bold blues and reds, shattering the monotone mandate forever. Fines? A relic. Replaced by volunteer sign-ups, the clubhouse now a hub for yoga classes and book clubs, walls adorned with photos from our victory party, where champagne flowed and stories swapped until dawn. Yet echoes of Karen lingered in subtle ways, teaching us vigilance without venom. Probation reports trickled through court contacts. She'd completed service hours begrudgingly, counseling sessions mandating anger management, where therapists noted her entitlement patterns rooted in divorce, bitterness, and power voids. One humid August day, Emily spotted her at the supermarket, pushing a cart with generic brands, eyes downcast in the produce aisle amid tomatoes that mocked her former bans. Their gazes met. Karen froze, mumbling, "Sorry," before scurrying away, leaving Emily shaken but empowered. "She's human, too. Flawed like us," she told me later over iced tea on the swing, fireflies blinking approval. It sparked talks of grace. We sent an anonymous donation to a local women's shelter in her name, closing the loop not with hate, but forward motion. My final aviation flourish came quietly, rerouting noisy cargo paths away from Willow Creek, gifting the skies silence, and blacklisting her permanently from all networks. Not pettily, but as policy for disruptors, ensuring no enablers flew free. Business boomed into legacy territory. Airports hitting 50 by fall's amber leaves, each acquisition a chapter in our shared story. Emily joining board meetings, her insights on community relations, sharpening operations, turning cold assets into warm connectors. We traveled more, Hawaii redux without incidents, her window seat sacred, Mai Tais toasting survival. Dreams of family grew, positive tests in spring, a nursery painted with airplane murals. Max sniffing cribs curiously. "Our kid will know strength," Emily said, hand on her belly during a baby moon flight on my jet, clouds fluffing below like cotton fields. Challenges arose, market dips, regulations, but we navigated them united. Revenge's fire tempered into enduring flame. As years blurred, Willow Creek thrived. Our tale whispered as legend. The couple who turned coffee splash into community soar. Karen faded into obscurity, a cautionary footnote, while we soared higher, literally, with a foundation funding aviation scholarships for underprivileged kids. Emily's garden produce donated to food banks, lives touched beyond measure. One evening, watching sunsets from the porch, Emily raised a glass. To triumphs hard won. I clinked mine, heart full, knowing revenge was the spark, but love, the endless runway. What's your story of standing tall against bullies? Did an HOA horror turn into your win? Comment below. I read them all, and who knows, your tale might inspire the next soar.